Todd Gilbert is now called to the stand. Todd is married to Alice. Todd knew Chad was an author, and when the Gilberts moved into the area in March 2017, they got to know the Daybells. Todd often interacted with Chad. They saw each other once a week in the yard and once a week at church. Gilbert had read some of Chad's books, and Chad spoke with his neighbor about his dreams and visions and characters in his book. Chad said the books were fictional and patterned after his visions. Gilbert says Chad started to teach him religious related topics. If they were standard LDS topics, I agreed with him. If they weren't, Gilbert ignored them. In February 2019, as Chad was leaving the Gilbert house, Chad said, "I don't know if I should tell you this or not, but I've had a vision that Tammy is going to die and move on before her 50th birthday." Gilbert went with his wife to Chad Daybell's house on the morning Tammy died. Gilbert says Chad seemed businesslike more than if someone had just lost their companion. Things were already planned out and ready to go for the funeral. The Gilberts arrived at Chad's house around 8:15 to 8:30 a.m. Todd mentioned the visions Chad had told him earlier in the year actually happened. Gilbert says Chad turned his back to his kids and somewhat whispered to Todd, "Yes, it did." Gilbert says he observed Tammy at church and she never appeared to have failing health. Chad and Tammy often sat up in the front of the building. They were there as a family. As time went on, they slowly moved back, and by the time of June 2019 happened, they were sitting clear in the back. They seemed a little distant from each other, and Chad was talking less to me about stuff. He said people talking about preparations was getting old, so he was taking a break. After Tammy's funeral, Chad told Gilbert that he was moving in with a friend who had an apartment on Pioneer Road. At Tammy's funeral, Gilbert says Chad didn't seem sad. He seemed like he could handle everything okay, and then in the funeral when he spoke, which personally I thought was odd too because most people don't do that when their spouse dies. He did show some emotions and spoke for some time. A few days after Chad moved out, the Gilberts called and said they wanted to bring him pizza at his new apartment and see how he was doing. Chad said he would come to their house instead, and he showed up an hour later and ate some cookies. He said he had a girlfriend named Lori Vallow. Gilbert had heard Lori's name before because he had listened to podcasts with her, Melanie Gibb, and Jason Moe. A few days later, the Gilberts met Chad, Lori, and Melanie P. in the Rexburg Temple. Chad introduced the Gilberts to his girlfriend. It was a short visit. Around 2-3 nights later, Gilbert says Chad and Lori both came to the Gilberts' house. We spoke about how they were getting along and they seemed to be going well at that point. Gilbert says the biggest thing he noticed is Chad and Lori were acting like a couple of teenagers who were first in love, holding hands, sitting close to each other. Chad was rubbing his leg. I thought that's odd as his spouse had just passed a week and a half ago. Gilbert had never seen Chad act like that with Tammy. Chad said he was going to move to Hawaii because he had a friend who wanted him to help write a book. Chad said he was going to marry Lori when Christ told them to get married. Gilbert recalled Lori saying she had a previous husband who died of a heart attack in December. We asked her if she had any children, and she said she had many. Gilbert recalls. Chad said Lori had a daughter who just passed away. Chad never corrected or said anything different after Lori said that about her daughter. Chad and Lori never said anything about Lori having a minor son. Around Thanksgiving, Chad and Lori visited again and said they just got married. They showed the Gilberts all of their wedding photos. Chad told the Gilberts he and Lori were taking Chad's kids to Disneyland. They never mentioned taking Lori's kids to Disneyland. The Gilberts never saw any children belonging to Lori Vallow. Gilbert says Chad told him that his kids felt good about Lori even though they were missing Tammy. Chad told Gilbert 2 or 3 times that Tammy visited him in spirit and was fine with everything. Her mission was complete on this earth and she could move on. Tammy told Chad to comfort the kids and she thought it was fine. After Lori was arrested and brought back to Rexburg, Chad visited the Gilberts. Without going into details about why he was there, do you recall a conversation taking place about his prior statement about Lori having a daughter who passed away? Blake asks. Gilbert recalls his wife asking about Tylee. He said Tylee, didn't really like him too much and she kind of stayed away. Blake has no further questions and we are breaking for lunch and the defense will cross-examine in about an hour. All right, if you guys are new here and this is your first time watching one of my videos, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, like the video, and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so every time I drop a video, you can get the notifications. Thank you guys for watching, and let me know in the comments what you guys think about the Gilbert's testimony in the Vallow Daybell trial.